So recently I talked about sandbox gaming with old school Dungeons and Dragons and how you could make your own module or your own setting with ease. Very easy, right? Where anybody can do it. And my aim is, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what I mean. And it will inspire you to go make your own adventure or your own setting, whatever you want to do. All you got to do is initially start with, well, it could be a large town or a city, and you give it a name. Okay, that's a starting point. You don't need to explain much else as far as just setting that up. Now, there's a lot of things you can start assuming about the city or the large town. It might have a mayor. It might have businesses. Might have churches. Might have a library. Might have a number of locations. You can give a few notes to that, right? No big issue. Okay, a few notes. A few businesses. A few of this. A few of that. You don't even have to write everything out for the city. Just some minor ideas, right? Could be 6, 7, 10 little businesses, right? A church, maybe 2. A good or a bad one. Now, why would you only be given little bits of information? I want to tell you this. When it comes to starting off with a sandbox, and you're starting off with basics, a lot of what you're going to do going forward is going to be improvisation. Not all of it, though. It's going to be improvisation and then work. So, in this city, you have businesses, you have churches, you might have a library, you might have a mayor, could even have a place where he lives. You could have a wizard, say he has a tower. We're talking about old school D&D, right? Okay, you got those ideas down. Maybe you want to have a couple bars or taverns or inns, right? Okay, that's good. Now you want to come up with some ideas that could potentially turn into adventures. Right? Maybe the wizard will definitely need someone to go find some ingredients for him. Right? Maybe a business needs some unique material. Right? Maybe one of the inns needs like a delivery. They need something delivered to them, or they have a hard time accessing it. You don't even have to say all the details to this stuff. These are little ideas, little hooks, that if the players hear about these things, these little jobs, these little needs, they could go towards them. Okay, that's a good starting point. Another good starting point is to make sure there's some NPC or place or location that can feed little bits of information to the player characters, like a job board or an NPC that's a friend, a connection that could tell them, hey, the wizard's looking for ingredients. You know, this inn over here is looking to get their liquor delivered to them. It's being late, right? They need somebody to go check this out. These are little jobs, right? Now, the player characters can take any of these hooks that they want, or they could come up with something on their own. You make sure they're clear on their freedom to go research something, to go look up something. You don't know what, but you tell them they can do anything. Now, why are you comfortable with this? Well, because the next steps, that after they start taking action, either looking at the hooks or looking at what they want to do, you get ready to improvise. Well, they want to look for a relic. Okay, maybe there's a library. They could go there. If you haven't written one out, you could just make it up. This is the part where you're improvising, right? You could just make it up. Now, more specific things like the wizard, maybe there's a specific ingredient. It's off somewhere in the forest. You don't need to detail these things out. Remember, you don't got to pre-make adventures with the hooks. You give a little tiny detail. Maybe what's the exact material the store owner will need, right? And some vague idea of where that can be found, who that could be gotten from. But just vague little notes. You're going to go and be willing to improvise in that early first session. Like, make it up and trust that you can. Trust that you'll be inspired too. They'll move towards things and you'll be forced to make something up when they get there. Trust yourself to do that. Anybody can. The people that made the modules, the people that made the settings, this is what they did. It's not hard. You don't have to be a genius. Right? What's the name of the forest? A player will ask you with their character, or just, the NPC, or the player will directly ask you. We'll say it's this. Make it up. Or, if you really feel the need, you could say there's some basic things outside of the city, like a forest, and you give it a name. Again, you don't need a map, but you could do some basics like that. It's not hard. Have a mountain with a name. Fine. Or you could just make it up. You can make it up. A lot of the first session is making it up. Give them reasons to move. What's really handy for any adventure, so you don't get players just sitting around in a sandbox, is to make sure there's a reason to move. They owe money for where they live. They got to pay that off, right? They got to make money to keep something going. Should put tiny pressures in like that, like a little reason why they need to get up and do something, not just sit there. If they just sit there, time goes by, where's the money? Where's your rent? Right? It's not hard to come up with an idea of where they live and how much that might cost them per month or whatever. Or they might want to establish something else. Well, there's some dealers around, some merchants, but they'll only be here for a short time, and their prices will be a little bit over what the player characters start with. So if they want some of these items, they got to get out, go on an adventure, go do something, go do a job, make some money to get these items. Whatever it is, little pressures, something they want, something they owe. Mind your stuff, not a big issue. So the players are going to go about take their characters and interact with the scene. And you're going to make some stuff up, right? It's like, well, where do they exactly got to go to get the liquor? All right, you'll come up with the name of a town off somewhere. But don't be afraid to do this. Don't be afraid just to make up the town. But now the town exists. Everything you're going to make up in improvisation becomes something that becomes real. So it's like setting something in stone. Every little minor thing you say becomes real. And improvisation is your best friend. You might hear people have to sort of wing it and make it up as they go. And you do that in a lot of small areas to begin with. It's not like you're going to script out every word every NPC is going to say or every action going to happen. Understand, improvisation is what all people that run these games have to be comfortable with. You never know what the players are going to do, and the way you secure yourself is by improvising. It's not a hard task. You listen to what the players think. You take in your own thoughts as you move forward. That's all. Not really hard. Now, they're going to go after stuff, look for stuff, agree to go on an adventure, want to start out on the road, and that's going to be your lead-in session right there. Them hooking up to a job, them connecting with people, them going around the city to meet different people. You'll make up different areas of the city. You want to go down to the business? Okay. There's some guards there, you could say. Some people. Maybe the players will have their characters try to interact with this stuff. Don't be afraid. Say, okay, sure. Yeah, the guard is there. Just go ahead and have a guard talk. Was the guard planned out to be in an area? Nah. But you made it up. And you can make up anything you want as they go forward. Whatever hits your common sense. You start telling them they go to an area, and you start thinking to yourself, well, if they were to go there, there'd be this. Just trust that you have that information or that type of common sense thinking, and then apply it. Improvisation is all about just making it as you go. But don't be worried. You're not stuck there. You're not stuck in improvisation zone the whole time. It's not the entire thing. You're going to let them interact with people in the city, get set up to leave, do stuff like that to go on some form of adventure or whatnot. But remember, you get old school D&D, there's many little tools that you have. Random encounters once they leave and go towards the forest or do whatever. And you can fall back on that stuff if you need to. Or just sort of jot down a possible encounter characters could end up on if they decide to leave the city. Not like a railroad. They're going to leave and go somewhere. Doesn't matter where they go. But maybe a monster or something they could possibly encounter outside of where they're going. But maybe the area where they're going, there's not much to encounter. You don't always have to make sure there is a combat encounter. And in reality, most of the time in early levels, players should be avoiding these encounters. So you don't put them in just for fighting. Maybe it is to force players to negotiate their way out or to avoid the threat altogether. They see them off in the distance. Okay, they move over here and hide. Or they'll learn. That's what old school D&D is all about. They go for the encounter when maybe they shouldn't. But it's an encounter. It's not something that has to be an overkill. That's the start of the game, right? Of course, you make sure they have to take their time in the city. Don't run an 8-hour session at this point. An opening session like this, when you're doing sandboxing and making your own thing, should always be short. Maybe 2 to 4 hours. I prefer 4 hours, right? Especially nowadays. Now, I personally would go longer, but I have more confidence in improvisation and all that, and I don't want to put heat on you. That might be something you find overwhelming. You just want to get up to a setup point. Now, they've made their decision. They go on the job. They go look for the relic. And play along with that when they go look for something random. Don't push back against what they want. Maybe they avoid your hooks. Create hooks. Call yourself an opportunist. So ideas will come to you as they're going around doing stuff. I could offer them this job. Or I never thought about that before I did this whole thing together. Maybe I'll offer this. Right, as they're looking for something. If they look for something, try to think of a way they can access information to that thing. Try to think of a piece of advice an NPC might give them, but you're just making it up. But be okay with that. Be all okay with that. Either let them go after a hook that you could go, opportunity, there's a hook I never thought of, or an idea. Yeah, sure, I'll let them go after that relic, after that treasure, after that idea, right? As long as it's something towards taking care of the pressure or paying their thing or doing whatever. So you play along with that type of random and freedomness. Because they're free to do whatever they want. That's old school D&D tells players, you do whatever you want. Well, this is how you make that real for them. You don't be afraid, and you let them do whatever they want, and you trust that you can improvise in all situations. Actually, improvising should be your friend, not something you're worried about. It should lead to opportunities. Be an opportunist. Ooh, never thought of that. Just have confidence that you can make that into something. Now, how do you make that into something? Okay, after the session, before they finally get to the forest, get to the thing, now you can start designing the little adventure paths. You can start adding on to the hooks. You can start advancing all these ideas. Right? You can also look for some other things. As they do stuff, opportunity is always in your mind. Maybe they meet the mayor, and the way you talk with the NPC, you're like, I don't know, I think I turned him a little bit into a corrupt person. Because you don't go in plans, you don't have to, right? But if something came across a certain way, or you hear the players, man, I wonder if he's corrupt. Maybe he is. And this is where you don't need a plot either to start off with. Plots are a bigger picture thing. You're looking at small picture stuff where you have no connections, it's really random and you're improvising. Plot is something where what you want to do is look at where the players go with their characters and build plots around where they're going, what they're participating with. Not a plot that's over here, why they walk over here. Right? So whatever they choose to interact with, or you had them interact with randomly like they might run into, you start thinking. This is opportunity, common sense, ideas floating in your head. Wow, okay, I can... You know what, maybe you'll make the guards seem a little stiff when they go up to them. Maybe the guards are the corrupt ones, not the mayor. Maybe they're trying to run some gimmick or some really criminal job going on in the city. Maybe you're thinking, I need to have a gang. I'll have a thieves guild connected to them. You know what, I'll have another tavern. I can have that over there. I can say there's a thieves guild. They're connected to that. You'll need a name. See, this is opportunity. See, you build as you go. You see as you go. Instead of trying to build everything at once, You're going to develop it through actually gaming. That's how this is where you start making your actual adventure. You start building the plots slowly, seeing things, opportunist. You start building a bigger picture. Oh, the guards are this, I could do that with them. I can connect them to this. They work for the Thieves Guild. Maybe the Thieves Guild has a guild master who pays all the guards to work for him. And he works against the mayor, who's actually an honest guy. Wait, we're building something. We're building a plot here. What if and the job the characters want to go do? What if that's connected to the mayor or to the thief guildmaster without them knowing? You start tying them into the plot. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Maybe somebody doesn't want the characters or anybody going to fix that situation. There's a corrupt reason. So now you have other people trying to stop the characters. Another reason for encounters, interactions on the road. Maybe some weird guy comes up and says to the characters, so why are you looking for this? But he's there asking the questions for the Thieves Guild Master. But you're just making it up as you go. Really, you'll have him trying to get information. You just made this guy up. But why? You're not even sure. It's all going to be developed as you go forward. You don't have to have the whole plan in your head for what it means. Be okay with the randomness you're creating. Now, what's all this randomness going to do for you? It's going to force you, between sessions, to start building something real based on all the shit that you made up during the session. You started making it up. Okay, I'll throw that in there. Without any idea what any of this is going to mean. You're taking common sense and, yeah, I'll do this. What does that mean? Stop thinking about that. Just, yeah, okay, I'll make this up. It's between the sessions where you start giving all of the meat. You start writing up, I've got to come up with a name for this guild master. And what is the reason he'd be connected? But this is where you start building, but it's easier to build. Now you have things to build on, not just something where you sat randomly before it all started and said, I'll connect this, I'll write 10 pages out, I'll do all this before we begin the adventure. No, you're building, and you're building around what the players are doing with their characters, so they're directly interacting with the stuff. You don't have to railroad. You're just designing it from what they randomly do. So they interact with it no matter what. There's no railroad. The players are guiding where the game goes. You're just building the thing around them, what they're doing. It's all you're doing. Right? No railroad, no nothing. They freely get to do whatever they want. A railroad might appear when if you took your adventure and said, here to another DM, why don't you try to run this for your players? But now for him to have his players run into your stuff, he has to direct them to it. But when you're making the adventure up through a sandbox, you're just building around what the players are doing, so they completely guide. No railroad. No nothing. You don't have to worry about the predetermined encounter down at a certain place. That's not how you're setting up. You set up encounters or ideas or whatever you're doing based on what the characters do. So you start, between the sessions, you start building up some of the stuff you said. You have to start putting meat on the bone for all the random stuff you made up through that first session. So you have that to work with. And you add some clarity for yourself. But nothing you're going to force the players to do. All you're doing is building towards what they're actually choosing to do. Right? So you're not going to railroad. You're just building towards, they're going to go there. Okay, fair enough. I'll just make the thing there. Yeah. But they have chosen to go there. It's their freedom to go there. Now what will happen the next session? You'll have all this new meat on the bone. All these new things to work with. Now you got clarifications, names, ideas. You'll feel a lot more confident. But improvising is always your friend as a game master. Or as a DM for old school Dungeons and Dragons. So you keep being willing all the way through to keep improvising. But you got more meat on the bone, so there's more solid stuff. But hey, they might want to do some unique things. But now you're more confident about just making it up. Make it up. Oh, and it's all developing from stuff you're making up. More plot ideas, you can enhance the plot. Add this thing in you never thought of beforehand. And you're not stuck to what you initially said either. That was the start. You built off nothing. You built off randomness. You keep doing that. And you're gonna allow twists and turns, not create, but allow twists and turns that come to your mind, and then create the twists and turns. This guy's bigger here. He does this. Stuff like that. They get on the road. They can meet the monsters, right? They can meet the this. They can encounter the church. Make sure your game is interesting with improvisation. You don't need to predetermine what's on the road. I want you to learn to do this as a dungeon master. Feel it out. What seems cool and right to you? Should they be walking through grasslands forever and never seeing anybody? Oh, do you think they should run into somebody randomly on the road? Okay, have them run into somebody randomly on the road. Who are they? Well, you're sort of going to wing it. Maybe you'll say they're a friend to somebody back in the town. You're not even sure exactly what all this means. But they get to meet that guy. They talk to him. Hey, traveler, what's up? And you'll randomly try to speak for him. And things will just happen. Things will just come out. But now that's a new person. See, everything you're going to randomly make up and just sort of go with it on the fly becomes something you can establish, develop further. Oh, there's a church on the road because you felt like there should be something they should be encountering. Feel it out. Really important to the scenery, to the place. What would look cool? Right? What would be cool to the scene? Like a little rule of cool type of thing as far as your mindset of how you're trying to present the world, the experience, what the players are going through. When you put something there, it's there. And players might choose to interact with something. Don't be afraid. You put a building there and you're like, I never planned any traps or encounters or anything. That's okay. That's okay. So what if they want to interact with the church? You might say to yourself, well, there should be some type of goofy thing that happens there. Maybe if they walk in that first floor, part of the floor might give out and they'll drop down into a basement area. Maybe there's some undead monsters down there. Why would there be undead monsters? Or skeletons? Maybe a necromancer lives here, but where is he? He's just not here right now. But see what I'm saying? I'm making it up on the fly. I'm making it up on the fly, and you got to be okay with doing that. Sometimes you got to do this when you're making up a lot of things as an improvisation DM, someone who's just putting it in there. Don't be afraid to say, okay guys, I need about 10 minutes before we move forward. Players will casually give you some time. They'll give you a break time and everything. As long as when they're directly playing, it's active and going. So when you need a break, take a break. Why would you take a break? Well, what magic would the necromancer have? Well, you can't improvise that quickly. So don't be afraid to take minor 5 or 10 minute breaks. But go right to looking at the spell. You're not going to tell the players what you're doing. Tell them to go get a drink or do whatever they got to do. Yeah, okay, let's see. I'll give them this name. And it's little things like that that you're just going to put together right quick. You don't have to add more, but remember why. More can come later. This is a starting point. You're giving me something as sort of a basic starting point, and you can put more meat on the bone between the sessions. Say, man, I'm going to connect him as a brother to this guy. But that doesn't need to be considered until you're between sessions. But hey, maybe thoughts will come to your mind randomly through coming up with this type of random thinking. Okay, play on that. Make notes. He'll be a brother to this guy. Okay, you're not going to wait between sessions. Now you have that idea in your head. Right? That's something you're going to add in right there. You're building a fantastic adventure, and you barely have had to do any work initially at the start. And the entire unique adventure, all the little things that you're putting in there, is all being built up. And how do you make sure you don't have things fall apart? These small pauses are good. Right, 5 or 10 minutes if you find yourself in an area where it's like, okay, because you want to make sure you're getting things right. Players don't care about pauses. They only care about the experience in the session. So if you're going to have a delay because you need to stop and think, just tell players, I need 5 minutes. That's actually okay. A lot of DMs don't realize that. You can get 5 minutes. It's okay to have a couple of these breaks during a session. As long as every time they go back in, man, it's on. You got your meat, you got whatever notes you needed done, you're just going to move forward on the action, on the thing. And not everything has to be an encounter. Be open-minded. A church can just be a random church. But maybe you're going to use it as something to do with lore. So pause might even come in and go, I'm going to say it's connected to an alternative god they've never heard of. Now you're making up a god. Now, if you're not just making an adventure or making a setting, it's okay because you can make them both at the same time. Things like Greyhawk were built up this way. Modules were built up this way. You start off with a basic city, and you just really basic things and improvisation. They call it game testing. That's, in a way, they're not really game testing. They're playing the game. That's what they're doing, really. Game testing is they're going to make this thing up through their play and then try to sell it to you. So now you already have a world that you got to learn and learn all this lore. But is that how they experienced it? No. And you could do the same thing. And building up a setting, this is how I did my setting, Skullhorn. My favorite one for Dungeons and Dragons. I built it up in the sandbox way. I've never ran a module in my life. Every adventure, same gimmick. Start basic. And now I can use my own setting, but the difference is I'm not going to do a lore dump on my head. I know the setting from building it up through this method. I understand it. As a DM, you want to make a setting that's yours. That fits to what you want to do. And you can adjust it and develop it. Your adventures are your adventures. And you never have to run the same thing twice. Because if you do it this way, you can always just run the adventure around what the players are doing. And improvisation is not a scary thing. It's actually easier than you would ever imagine. When your creativity gets snuffed out or smothered by trying to run somebody else's stuff, you can forget you even have it. When you put pressure on yourself, this is how it comes out. Look at a writer. It's one thing, they can write forever. They never get the book done forever. But if it's like deadline, you got 6 months. Somehow a book comes out in 6 months. Well, for you to get your creativity going forward, you need pressure. Improvisation and doing it this way is pressure to get you to think. But what do you get to do? You're not just improvising all the time. You start there and you develop. So it starts off with a fair bit of improvisation with a little bit of information. Then you develop more between sessions. And the more you develop, the more you're going to create to have to work with. Which makes all your improvising easier too. And the more comfortable you are with improvising, you'll just be less intimidated. That little pause gimmick I told you about, that saves the day for you. Anytime you feel overwhelmed by needing to improvise, take a pause. Don't spoil the actual gameplay, and your players will remain happy. They won't even have an issue if you've taken several of them, as long as every time you go back in, it's fun. And don't take them forever. It doesn't need to be 20 minutes. It won't take you 20 minutes. A 3-minute video is long, trust me. So when I say take 10 minutes, that's a long time to get notes done. But they can kill that time. They can go burn it, get a drink, go to the bathroom. And your players will appreciate small breaks to think, consider things. Yeah, they actually will. And they'll probably even like that as a more casual part of the experience. Having some breaks here and there. That really does work. You can build a setting from scratch, and each time you go back to make a new adventure, well, now you get so much of the setting done, but now you're making a new adventure with all this other stuff already worked on and developed. And you can keep adding to the setting through the next adventure. You do more, that adds to the setting. You add a new god, that adds to the setting. You need to come up with a whole reason why the gods are this way. That adds to the setting. So you develop the setting, and you develop the adventure. The adventures. And you never have to run the same adventure twice. You can always tailor adventures to the actual players and characters at that time. Play it out that one time. But what you take away from it usually is the development for your setting. You can take away the stories from the adventure. You can collect those. Remember characters. Those characters can become part of the setting. You see that in old school D&D. Many of the spells that you see are from player characters that played in those early games with Gary Gygax. And that's what you can do. So the characters, the players, become part, ironically, through their adventures of helping you develop the setting. And I got to tell you, this is more exciting than buying a setting or buying a module. And once you realize you can do it, you probably never want to buy either one again. You just want to make your own thing. And that's what happened to me. I never ran a module because I realized my own adventures were exciting. They allowed me to keep creating and building. And I realized I didn't have to make a whole world all at once in these little steps. A setting is developed over time. It's an amazing thing. But it lets you come up with other ideas, like the city campaign video that I've done recently, which is a form of coming from sandboxing. Sandboxing as an idea was pushed away at one point in TSR because it got in the way of them selling their modules. If you know about sandboxing, you might not want to buy the module, right? So what happened? They stopped teaching it, and at one point they even tried to redefine sandbox gaming into their modules to keep selling the modules, not really wanting you to know the truth. Because if you realized what I just told you about sandboxing, you would realize you're not going to spend money on modules or a setting. You just make your own adventures and make your own setting, and you can do it easily. Easy. I hope you've just learned through this video how to make your own adventures easily, how to make your own setting easily. That's it. That's it. And the players will help build the setting, not just through their play with their characters, but the questions they ask you. When they ask you something, you got to make it up. But once you make it up, well, there's something you made up. Now you can develop that thing out. You got pressure to give an answer. You give an answer. You're just making it up. But whatever you made up is real. Because the second you say it's this, like you might have just made it up, but you're not lying. It's not like you got some alternative thing. So it's not a lie. To your players, you would tell them, I told you the truth. It's just I made it up. But once I made it up, I had to make it real. So the second I made it up, it became real. So when I answered your question, it was the truth the second I put the words out of my mouth to you. Right? So it's pressure to create. And you'll create. And you'll love your own ideas and your own creation. Between the sessions when you're working on that stuff, like, man, I can do this. I can make this a bigger picture. I can do this. It's all that. I promise you it's that. And you get excited by your own creativity, which is a big part of what this hobby should be. And with many other the games outside of D&D, they drilled on the sandboxing even more than what TSR ever did. Early OD&D, original Dungeons and Dragons, it gave you the push on the sandbox. But by AD&D 1E, they dropped it, especially in favor of making sure you purchased their modules and their settings and not just go about making your own. Gary Gygax realized one thing early on. He hoped the customers never realized that they don't need him or the company or even the game. You can make a game just using a D6. You start off and you're like, how do I make a game? Just use a 6-sided dice. Okay. If we do attacks, we'll say that you can roll a 6-sided against mine. What about hit points? Well, we won't worry about that right now. If you roll higher, I'll say you've damaged him a lot. And you make it up. What does that mean? How much do you want it to mean? How much detail do you want? So you do something random. Then you go, okay, later, maybe we'll make it this. But the initial gaming and just diving hit on in right away with the most basic stuff, you'll realize you can just do something random, make it up, and then develop it. But it's in the actual gaming, it's in the actual doing the activity is where the real creation happens. That's the secret. You don't need D&D, you don't need a module, and you don't need a setting. That's the truth. I hope I just let you in on something that you didn't realize. There you go. Take that magic and go make your own adventure in your own setting, like a lot of us did. It doesn't hurt to buy something or get something with pretty art on it and buy the occasional thing, but don't spend all your money. And if you don't have a lot of money, really be careful. And if you don't have any money for this stuff, I gave you everything you need to make everything for yourself. You don't need the setting, and you don't need the module. Hence why I call these products money grabs. Now you get it? Now you get why it's a money grab? Because once you realize you can make it all yourself, you realize you don't need the module, and you don't need the setting.